Good afternoon and welcome to the SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS PLC Interim Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all the questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Stuart Ashman, CEO. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today as we present our interim results. I'd like to give a short introduction to who we are and what it is that we do for those of you who are new to the company, and then I'll give a general update on where we are following on from this morning's RNS. So my name is Stuart Ashman. I'm the Chief Executive of the company. I have about 27 years experience in life sciences, medical devices, generally speaking, the commercialization of complex science. I'm often the sort of bridge between R&D teams and the commercial and sales team, often the architect of strategies to bring products to the market at the right time, the right place, right price. Often that's supported by strategic mergers and acquisitions. I previously led the innovation teams and the mergers and acquisition teams at Smith & Nephew, and then again at BSN Medical in life sciences and wound care. And I joined the company a little over 4 years ago when we were ready to move into the strategic development stage. Prior to joining this company, I was the chief exec at a Finnish medtech company where Manpreet Randhawa was my chief finance officer. Manpreet.
Thank you, Stuart. Manpreet Randhawa, chief financial officer at SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS. Originally a chartered accountant, began my career with Deloitte in London. Over 11 years of involvement at senior strategic level with startups and mature businesses in listed and private equity environments in sectors such as medtech, deep tech, and software businesses. Throughout my experience, I've managed both financial and operational teams, and I've been with the business just under 2 years, having joined in June 2022.
Thank you, Manpreet. So a quick word about who we are and what we do. Our focus is very much on skin health, specifically how skin looks, how it feels, and more importantly, how it repairs itself from injury and various diseases. In the past, there's been an awful lot of work done on the gut microbiome and the impact of probiotics therein, and consumers have become very much more aware recently of gut health and its impact on overall well-being through the likes of Yakult, Activa, kombucha, kimchi, etc. But little had been known about the skin microbiome and the impact of probiotics therein. The company was formed out of the University of Manchester and the work done by Professor Kath O'Neill and Professor Andrew McBain, who looked to extract positive bacteria or probiotics from the gut and apply them to the surface of the skin to see if they demonstrated the same attributes, positive attributes, as they did within the host environment. That led on to the discovery and then production of a lysated bacteria, in this case Lactobacillus rhamnosus, which is an extremely famous and very positive bacteria probiotic. When this is applied to the surface of the skin, it enhances barrier function, closes tight junctions, etc. So that's what the company was floated and formed and funded to do, was to basically push that lysate out through commercial agreements. The first commercial agreement was signed in the closing days of 2019 with Croda PLC, and I'll come on to detail that in just a moment. And we do expect that project to come to an end this year, and you will hear during this presentation directly from Croda. We also have another side of our technology is Axis Biotics, and this addresses the complex area of the gut-skin axis, that superhighway that exists between the gut and the surface of the skin. We launched a product during the pandemic for the alleviation of symptoms associated with psoriasis. That was a very difficult project to do during lockdown, but we launched a product which we now currently sell through an e-portal and also through Amazon. We have had discussions with multinationals about pushing this further out, and we are also looking at an acne study to complement the psoriasis product. We are revenue generating from our pilot launch with very little marketing spend, and we have extremely high retention rates, well north of 80% in terms of retention of customers. We translated all of that into a 5-pillar strategy, which has been the hallmark of our growth thus far. From left to right, this is not just a pretty picture, it's actually a legal structure. Each one of those pillars is a separate limited company that is wholly owned by Topco, the PLC, and the IP is licensed through each pillar in the event that we wanted to divest any one of those. From left to right, SKINBIOTHERAPEUTIcs. This is the company's core technology, that lysated technology that I talked about, that's designed to promote skin health by harnessing those beneficial properties of probiotic bacteria, and specifically in cosmetic applications in this case. This is where the Croda transaction sits. This addresses makeup, cosmetics, moisturizers, anti-aging creams, shampoos, conditioners, sun care, skin care, etc., all in active skincare. Very much an aesthetic approach here. Secondly, Access Biotics. This is the area where we bring to market that gut skin access product, those food supplements that one takes on a daily basis to alleviate the symptoms associated with irritable skin conditions like psoriasis and acne. This is, as I said, an area where we directly sell. The third pillar is Medibiotics. This is the medical device and regulated application of the same lysated technology in pillar 1, but used to enhance a barrier around an open wound or potentially accelerate the closure of a wound therein. The fourth area is Clean Biotics. This is about introducing good bacteria into areas where bad bacteria have become prevalent. This is a much more regulated area and much further down the line. Likewise, the fifth pillar, Pharmabiotics, which is not something we tend to dwell on, but it would be remiss of me not to talk about it as an area of opportunity. And this would be an RX or prescribed version of the same products that we use in food supplements in pillar 2. So just focusing now on Croda and on that SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS product. So this was the lowest hanging fruit. This was the fastest route to market. What was required here was a safety study that was successfully carried out in 2019, and discussions were well underway with Croda PLC. And they're a FTSE 100 company, multi-billion-pound turnover, but very specifically, they have a specialized division called Sederma, who are based in Paris, who deal with cosmetic ingredients. We did have discussions, and we have had discussions with direct consumer brands, but we would have been very much limited to their customer loyalty and their customers therein. By dealing with Croda, or more specifically Sederma, we would get access to their global portfolio of customers for cosmetic ingredients, which is in excess of 12,000 customers. They agreed to basically replicate our science and then produce it on an industrial scale and sell this out as a cosmetic ingredient to those 12,000 customers. In doing so, building a dedicated production facility for the lysate to produce en masse. We also negotiated access to that raw material for use across all of the other strategic pillars. This has been a lengthy project thus far. It began in the dying days of 2019, in November of 2019, and we come to the very end of that now, and you're going to hear that directly from Croda in just a moment. We'd expect royalties to begin towards the back end of this year, and we have negotiated own label potential here, so we can basically take this and put it into our own product should we wish to do so. This is a huge area of growth, and basically it's been an extremely worthwhile project thus far. We latterly announced towards the sort of the autumn of last year that there'd been additional activity, additional positive activity or unexpected technical benefits as described by Dr. Damien Kelly. They asked us for a 12-month extension to the agreement so that they could explore that additional activity in detail. That's a difficult decision for us to turn down, a difficult request for us to deny, given that the object of this additional activity and this additional scale-up was to be measured in a clinical trial, in clinical studies, so that they could then potentially charge a much higher price for the product than they were initially anticipating. We granted that extension, and those clinical trials then commenced. Manpreet and myself just recently visited the plant in Sederma, literally a couple of weeks ago, and I've got to say we were stunned by the level of complexity of the processes that we've gone through. These are the posters that are demonstrated or shown outside of each of the labs. Now there are 7 labs within that facility, all very large, all very specialized. So ignoring the first one, which is plant cell culture, basically any strain that comes into that facility goes, be it from a plant, an animal, or a human being, goes through a very, very rigorous and very controlled process. In our case, that process is 38 steps long, and that's what's taken the time. So this goes through molecular quantification, structural analysis, mapping, etc., method development. It then goes through in vitro and in vivo testing. And then, more importantly, from our perspective, it goes through downstream processing and scale up. We are at the final stage of this now. We are at the point where we are claim substantiation or claim validation. In our case, that's clinical studies. The regulatory side of things and the intellectual property side of things are all but done now. And what remains following the clinical studies are the marketing and the sales side of things. So what Sederma call industrialization, what we would call commercialization. So this ends with cosmetic active ingredients. And I asked Sederma if they would say a few words about this themselves, rather than you listen to my dulcet tones, which you've done for so very long. I asked them if they would basically just say a few words on a video. So this is a rather rough and ready video, but I think it portrays the sentiment and the pride behind which Croda sit on this. This is a 7-year process normally. So Matrixyl and many of the other products that have gone very successfully through the same process with Sederma has been a 7-year process. We will complete this project in less than 5 years. And rather than me go on about this, I'd like to play you a short video from Cécile Jonchier, who is the project lead for SKINBIOTHERAPEUTIcs. Could you play the video, please?
I'm Cécile. I'm in charge of R&D Biotech department at Sederma. After 4 years of research to develop the project related to high potential ingredient for the cosmetic market, we have now reached the last stage of this project, meaning the investigation of clinical trials. There are 2 trials running concurrently, and the final cohorts will be completed during summer. This key step, in case of positive responses, will validate efficacy and marketing claims. We are excited to reach the end of this long journey, which will add a high-level efficacy product for the cosmetic market. We are also very proud to have progressed so quickly by saving 2 years comparatively with other similar projects.
Thank you. As I said, that was it's a short video, but I think it was important for you to hear that directly from Sederma. So the exact words that Cécile has used are written down in today's RNS, Interim's RNS. So let me just be very clear about this. They're very, very proud that they've done this in under 5 years. There are 2 trials that are running almost concurrently. One trial is external and is done by an independent third party. The other trial runs to exactly the same protocol and is run internally. This is the Sederma way. This is what they do. That way they can monitor progress. It's the same process that they've used many, many times before that have led on to blockbuster products. The internal protocol allows them to basically monitor progress. We are told by them directly that the progress is very, very strong indeed. The first cohort, if you like, or the internal trial finishes at the end of May. The second external trial finishes at the end of the first week in June, at which stage this then goes into write-up, and concurrently they start the commercialization process, the mainstream marketing, and basically the forward selling of the product. So let me be quite clear here. This project is not binary in any way. We've passed the go, no-go stage gates, the various hurdles that we've had to go through that could have stopped this project dead in its tracks. We passed them a long time ago. We were asked to extend this project for reasons of pricing. They feel very strongly, Sederma feel very strongly, that if they can get solid clinical evidence and they can get some metrics behind this, they have a significant opportunity to raise the price of this. Now, if that, let's answer the questions for the naysayers out there. If the clinical evidence was not to be super strong, this product still launches, but it doesn't launch at a much higher premium price. The evidence that we have thus far, and we're led to believe by Sederma, that from an internal perspective, the project is running extremely well. This finishes end of May on one cohort and end of the first week in June on the other. So we are very, very nearly there. You've heard that direct from Cecile. They're very, very happy with the progress. They've saved 2 years over the normal project, and it will complete in less than 5 years. So there's nothing binary about this at all. In terms of a timeline, I thought it important to put this up pictorially. We signed the contract in November of 2019. The lysate was then replicated the following year and then moved on to mapping and selectivity. Downstream processing followed that. In 2023, they pushed on the scale up and the stability. In October of last year, they asked us for the extension and then moved into the clinicals. And in June 2024, this industrialization, or what is left from that industrialization, commences, which is sales and marketing. That runs concurrently with the write-up. So I'm kind of hoping that that puts this to bed and that people now realize this is not binary. This is very, very real. So for those of you that invested in this company off the back of Croda, this is not only very real and happening, it is considerably de-risked. We are, in their words, at the very last stage of this project. They believe the additional activity is extremely positive. I've already mentioned the timelines. The clinical trial is expected to facilitate that increased in evidence-based pricing. We have not spent any money on this at all. This has all been funded by Croda and Sederma in terms of the extension. This ends in a matter of months, and there's very high expectations internally. And as I've said, commercialization follows right up. Just moving on to SKINBIOTHERAPEUTIcs now. You'll remember, for those of you who don't know, that we launched this product a couple of years ago. We did this right in the middle of lockdown. We did a study that we had to rewrite in the middle of the pandemic. That meant that we designed a mobile phone application and tested this over a number of participants over 56 days. The results were very, very good indeed, much better than we had initially expected, given what was going on in the world at the time. I think the compliance levels were extremely good as well. In the 70% for itchiness, redness, and irritability, and 65% for fewer flaky patches. This continues to be a stunning product. Let's just look at this. This is the latest one that came in, and this was literally last week. We continue to see huge differences to people's life. This lady suffered with psoriasis for more than half of her life, and within 8 days, to use her words, she's seen an unbelievable difference. And we have more and more of these reports that come through day in, day out. We were very much asked if we were a one-trick pony when it came to this particular product. We were asked if there's anything else we could do. As I said, we talked about the acne results. We released them midway. We wouldn't normally do that. But in order for the market to see how successful that midpoint was, we decided to release results there. So we did this. We launched these products from a standing start. We are not a B2C business. We were formed, funded, and floated to be a B2B business. We did this from a standing start. We're now on Amazon Prime, and we continue to acquire new channels through acquisitions. We've launched this in the UK and the US initially, and then we pushed this out through Spain, Italy, and France. And we're now working through a company called World Products, which Manpreet's going to talk about in a little while. That acne study finishes pretty much the end of Q1. Cohort 1 is already finished. Cohort 2 finishes next week. And Cohort 3 will finish at the end of the first week or the middle of the second week in April. And the reason for that is you always get some stragglers that don't start on the date that you want them to, because they have life events, they have weddings, they have, sort of family functions, parties, they're on vacation, etc. So we have a straggler cohort, which we'll report in sort of, as I say, mid-April. We'll then write that up, and then we sincerely hope to be able to launch a product in 2024. It still would be our desire to put this into a vehicle that is appropriate for the target audience, something like a chewing gum or a capsule. But a lot of that will depend on the cost of that finished item. Manpreet and I have just come back from the Netherlands this week, where we met with Winclove, and we've been talking about the delivery mechanism for that acne product and what that might look like. In other news on SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS, we are now looking at bulk formulation, and we've just been looking at samples of what those containers and tubs would look like with a scoop, and hopefully that will bring the price down quite significantly, which is still a problem for us. Finding that sweet spot on pricing is critical. We're not there yet, but we're certainly getting there. Manpreet, would you just like to talk a little bit about World Products?
Sure, thank you, Stuart. Obviously, as you can see, we've got a fantastic product in Access Biotics PS with remarkable results. We've got an increasing subscriber base with quite a loyal following. And we get asked the question by investors, why aren't you selling millions of pounds of this product? Well, Stuart pointed out that our B2B business, B2C business, and we don't have the huge marketing budgets that would get us to millions of pounds of revenue every year. So what we have to do is utilize our marketing spend in the most effective way. And if we look at the 6 months through to December 2023, we spent a little under £100,000 on marketing. As we noted in our RNS, we've partnered with World Products, who are an Amazon accelerator partner specializing purely in healthcare products, and they're based in Leicestershire in the UK. If you go onto their website, some of the products they deal with are household names, names like Vaseline, Dove, Lux, and many more. And we came into contact with World Products as they already supply or distribute for Dermatonics, the business we acquired in January 2024. The reason we've partnered with World Products is to try and accelerate our exposure into France, Italy, Spain, and the US purely through Amazon. No other channels, but purely through Amazon. They operate in 4 continents and are a top-ranked healthcare distributor on Amazon. We're expected to initially launch in France through Amazon, and we'll follow that with Spain and Italy shortly thereafter, and then later in the year in the US as well. So what World Products will be doing for Access Biotics will be receiving the product and storing it, and that will be locally as well. So in Europe, they will have our product stored in their Polish warehouse. They'll then do the listing and optimization management on Amazon. Same again with advertising and promotional management as well. And then the products will go directly to the customers from their warehouses, and thus increasing our exposure on Amazon and hopefully increasing our sales as well in those territories.
Thank you, Manpreet. I'll just talk a little bit now about Medibiotics. This was all about application in advanced wound care, preventing the spread of an infected wound by strengthening the barrier around that wound site and accelerating wound closure at the same time. This is applicable in hard to heal wounds and very important in that specific niche environment. Things like venous leg ulcers and very topically, right on point, in diabetic foot ulcers. And if you think about the acquisition that we've just made, which I'll talk about in a moment, of Dermatonics, who have excellent connections and excellent relations with that world, there is a potential for us to put some of this science into those channels. We've just signed another contract with the University of Manchester, which we call Project Epiderm. This is led by Professor Sheena Cruikshank and Professor Andrew McBain, who we've worked with in the past. And this is designed to run for 6 months with a potential 6 months extension leading to a clinical trial that would secure us a deal with a multinational. We've already had long discussions with these multinationals. There have been positioning papers that have been presented to them. We have spoken about microbiome-driven technologies for advanced wound care. It's a very, very hot topic in that space at the moment. And we're very confident indeed that the conclusion of this project will get us absolutely where we want to be and get us a deal with a very large multinational in this space. Just talking briefly now about inorganic opportunities. We spoke in the past about accretive acquisitions, and we've completed the first one of those, looking at sort of companies that would bring us technology either from the inside out in terms of supplements or outside in terms of topicals, Dermatonics clearly being the latter. This is a very highly fragmented market, and we'd like to look at a sort of dermatology consolidation, putting some smart companies together where we can leverage off each other's science, technology, or sales presence, or sales strengths and routes to market. So companies that have got next generation science, or companies that have some microbiome driven element as well, but also they have to be revenue generating. This is what attracts the multinationals. You get to that magic £1 million in turnover. They can see that scalability and it also accelerates our path to profitability. I spoke a little earlier with Greg Andrell, who is the CEO and founder of Dermatonics, and I asked him a couple of questions about, we got on a conversation about a little bit about his background and about why he formed this company, why he founded it, and why he thinks it's so very different. And I thought it might be, again, rather than listening to me, it might be interesting for our investors and our shareholders to listen to Greg in his own words. So if we could play that next video, please.
So I'm a Kiwi chartered accountant, trained with Ernst & Young, and then worked in FMCG with Unilever and Shell. I've been in the UK over 30 years. Some years later, I had the opportunity to, I felt that I could create my own brand, and which sort of showed my values. So those values are integrity, honesty, working and respecting my staff, and also I have some a green tinge to my values as well. So the new range we have has got lots of natural ingredients in it, including Manuka honey from New Zealand, and we're also moving. We've just moved to having a carbon neutral claim for our Once Heal Balm, which is the main product in the range. It is prescribed by 4,500 GP surgeries.
So on the subject of the actual products themselves, let's just talk a little bit about what makes them different from everything else in the market. You know, what's made them so special?
Yes, so we very much focus on an evidence base. We have more published papers for our Once Heal Balm than any of our competitors have, and we work very closely with key opinion leaders. We also work internationally, so we sell in 40 countries internationally, and we're quite well tied in with the professionals who run international diabetic foot groups, as I say across the globe.
Great. And on the subject of the products and actually the routes to market, you know, we know that you know, the products are widely available across podiatry clinics, but there's also there's the OTC pharmacy stuff as well. So the likes of Superdrug, etc., and it's pretty widely available across all those areas, right?
Yeah, so we have a broad distribution. So we're OTC. Superdrug do a particularly good job of merchandising our products across their store range. We're also in Boots, and we're in around 1,000 podiatry clinics, so private podiatry clinics, where we're growing very rapidly. They love our products.
Right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the last announcement that we put out about Dermatonics post acquisition, drawing back to a meeting that you and I had in London with Will Pugh and Mr. Modi himself from the Umesh Modi Group, which was a wonderful meeting. I think we were both stunned and pretty shocked at the speed at which they'd accelerated the launch of these products to market. Do you just want to talk a little bit about that, because obviously those discussions started quite some time ago?
Yes, we were introduced to them by UK Trade and Industry, who do a fantastic job with helping us sell internationally. We signed the contract in June, and I went out September time to New Delhi, and I met with the management team. I had 2 days of meetings with them. So, being able to speak to them face to face and assure them of the product's quality and our credentials as well was hugely important.
I've got to say, that meeting that we had in London, obviously the jewel in the crown being the announcement that they were ready to launch and ready to go way ahead of schedule, was excellent. But I've got to say also that the presentation that they gave and the briefing on the size and scope of the company, but also the level of diligence that you talk about there, sort of 1,200 sales staff going out there selling this product across not just India, but that entire region, that residential training facility that they own, which is constantly churning people through it, 7 days a week that are learning these products. I've got to say, it fills us all full of confidence. So yeah, that hell of a deal. Well done. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, that I get asked this by institutional investors and also a lot of the retail investors that, look, Greg's founded this company. It's been around a long time. It's turning over a couple of £1 million a year. It makes $500,000 EBITDA. It's profitable. It's very, very well respected. Products well received all over the place. Why did you want to sell it? And more specifically, why did you sell to us?
We were really impressed with your products and with the potential synergies that will come from that. Then also, it gives us the opportunity, if we're looking at expanding into other parts of the foot care market, that you will have access to funds that will help us do that.
Yeah, and drawing back just a month or so ago, we had the two teams together, and there was a real sort of electricity in that room. I think both the teams got on really, really well, and our team, the SKINBIO team, were really, really sort of excited about the future, about the cross fertilization of products, and certainly I felt that your team responded the same. Any feedback on that?
Yes, so I think in that meeting, the brains were ticking over, and people were seeing the opportunities to combine your technology with our products. Our diabetic foot specialist is very, very well linked with international leaders in the diabetic foot profession, and he instantly saw an opportunity to meet with one of those leaders and explain the rationale behind your products and the skin barrier effects that you have and the wound healing effects you can have. So, that was one example. And we also had the synergies, we discussed the synergies with the Modi group. There's more than just Modi selling our product. There's the potential down the line of selling your products as well.
Can we move on to the next slide, please? So let's just talk a little bit about that Umesh Modi group and the Dermatonics tie-up. As we mentioned before, they've got 12,000 sales reps, 1,200 sales reps in India, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. And I mentioned in a question to Greg there, this dedicated training facility. So they're pulling those reps through that facility and training them on the pros of the unique selling points of the Dermatonics products. They are number 1, 2, or 3 in the over-the-counter pharmacy categories within those regions. The total addressable market for those products and for diabetes management is in excess of £5 billion. We have had discussions with them regarding other products, but it's not just the Once Heal Balm that's being launched out there. As we go through this phase, there's 2 and 3 other products that are following on from that, and we are having discussions with them about what other types we could do. There's been a lot of questions asked about forecasts. Surely you must have them. Well, we don't have them that are firm enough for us to issue. And the moment that we do have them, you'll be the very first to know. That is absolutely material and price sensitive. The moment that we receive those forecasts, we will issue them to the market. Right now, they've got to get through 1,200 people and launch across, as I say, Africa, Middle East, and Asia, as well as India. So it's going to take them some time to gauge market reaction to the product and then come back with a solid forecast. But I hope that video with Greg gives you a little insight into the man, the company, and we're very proud to have made that acquisition, and that integration has gone extremely well indeed, much better than we could have hoped for. So over to Manpreet, who's going to talk about the financial results and outlook.
Thank you, Stuart. So I'm pleased to present our half-year results for the 6 months through to December 2023. So looking at this period of time, we've seen an uptick in activity across all areas of the group, including Sederma, which we've discussed in great detail, Access PS, and the rollout of that product through Amazon and Europe, the acne program that's coming to its fruition, and we'll announce the results of those as soon as the write-up's done. Our R&D programs, so the oral inflammation programs that are ongoing, and this all culminated in our first strategic acquisition post-period end in January 2024 with the acquisition of Dermatonics. Please note that the financial results do not include any financials from Dermatonics. So going through our financials, our revenues, which is sold based on unit sales of Access PS, continue to grow year on year and month on month. We saw an increase in half-year revenues compared to the comparative period, 31st December 2022, of 38%, from 77,000 to 107,000. The growth in revenues largely attributable to the increase in our subscriber numbers from 134 at the end of December 2022 to 523 at the end of December 2023. Our gross profit margin reduced by 3% from the prior period, and this is largely due to inflationary increases that we've taken on compared to the prior year from our supply chain. Stuart and I were with Winklow during the week, and we were discussing ways to reduce our costs going forward. We will announce that in due course as to what that looks like. In terms of R&D expenditure, that declined as the number of programs either declined or finished pending their next phases, which will commence post-period end. So this is mainly attributable to the oral program, which finished its most recent phase during those 6 months, and we will announce the next phase of that in due course. Overall, our overhead base did increase by 26%. This is largely driven by inflationary pressures, and we aren't the only business to have experienced this. Many others did experience this in the last 12 months, as well as one-off costs in relation to the acquisition of Dermatonics. The loss before tax, as a result, increased by 2.5% as those costs flowed through the bottom line. Cash, as at the end of December, was just under £2.9 million. This was following a very successful fundraise, as at the end of November 2023, where we announced or raised £3.3 million of gross proceeds. I'd just like to show the growth in Access PS sales through subscriber numbers and retention. So as you can see, there has been quite a significant uptick in the number of subscribers in Access PS, mainly in the 6-month periods that we're reporting. We've found an effective way to get more subscribers on board through pricing and social media advertising as well. In terms of the retention rates, you can see that they're generally within the 80% plus range, achieving 92% in certain months during the year. You can see in August that the retention rate does decline, and we have seen this in comparable years as well. A large part of that reason is that during the summer months, symptoms of psoriasis do tend to naturally disappear. And then as we approach sort of autumn and winter, those symptoms do come back. And what you see then is subscribers coming back to buying the product, which is where that uptick comes back into play in September. Now on to our trading outlook. As communicated to the market at the time of the acquisition, we expect Dermatonics to deliver 800,000 in revenues and 200,000 in profit before tax for the 5 months through to 30th of June 2024. On a pro forma basis, so if the acquisition was made on the 1st of July 2023, it would have represented £2 million in revenues and 450,000 in profit before tax. This is an increase on the prior year of 100,000 in revenue and £250,000 in profit before tax. In terms of forecasts for Dermatonics, for the FY25 financial year to the end of 30th of June 2025, our expectations are that the numbers remain in line with the analyst forecasts of £2.6 million in revenue and £600,000 of profit before tax. I'm pleased to say that the integration process with Dermatonics is complete, both from a people and systems perspective, and the respective teams are working very well together, and we see potential synergies across the group. In terms of Access PS, we continue to see monthly revenues increase and expect to supplement this with our new and exciting partnership with World Products, which we outlined earlier. We expect revenues to be in line with management expectations for the year end 30th of June 2024, of 250,000, which represents an almost doubling of the FY23 revenues. As I mentioned earlier regarding our gross margins, we are working on ways to reduce our cost of our direct costs. Just going back to the subscriber numbers, one of the main reasons that people either stop subscribing or don't buy the product is because of the sales price. And when we compare our price to competitors, we know we are at the top end. But this is a premium product and it works, and we've got startling results. However, we would like to reduce the sales price going forward, and as we continue negotiations with Winklow, we will announce those reductions in due course. Finally, we've seen the results of the interim stage of the acne trial, which we announced a few weeks ago. We've already commenced discussions with our supply chain partners to begin the design of the packaging, etc., for an acne product, which we expect to launch at some point in 2024, and that will be followed with some forecasts that we expect to issue to the market as well. Moving on to the CLN, the convertible bond facility, which we signed up to in January 2024. We purely did this to acquire Dermatonics, and we entered into this facility with Macquarie Bank and CLG Capital for a total facility size of £5 million. Now, we've drawn down 1.6 million for the Dermatonics acquisition. Following the investor sentiment post that deal, we have agreed, and obviously we announced it to the market, that we will not use the remaining facility and will instead look at more traditional methods of financing, such as leverage loans. Now that we have assets on board, other financing vehicles do become available to us. To date, we've had 3 conversions from Macquarie Bank, and looking at the total trade of the convert stock in February, that represented overall about 13% of overall volume. As we move through the CLN, with each conversion, the amount of interest we accrue reduces. So as an illustrative point, if future conversions were to continue at the same rate as they have done, we would expect a total interest cash requirement or payment of about £55,000 for the £1.6 million facility that we have drawn down. Thank you. Stuart, you're on mute.
Thank you, Manpreet. Sorry about that. Just to be quite clear here, and I am going to be quite clear, there's been a lot of talk about Croda as a binary project, etc., etc. You've just heard directly from Cecile, who is the project lead for this. This is not binary. We are at the final stage. That stage is the clinical studies. They end respectively end of May and end of first week in June. We then go on to write up. If they are hugely successful, and every indication we've got at the moment is that it's going to plan, then we charge a premium. If it's not, then we charge the price that we're going to charge. That's not a binary. Any use of that word binary is quite silly, actually. This commercialization phase starts in June 2024. Very high expectations internally at Sederma. I hope that, having seen the announcements today, having listened directly to Cecile, having seen the process flowcharts directly from Sederma themselves, that puts that to bed once and for all. So if you invested in this company to see Croda come to fruition, then this is still the same company you invested in. The opportunity is still there. It is still exactly as it was if you invested at 15p or 55p. Unfortunately, there are some sentiment that's brought this price down. That opportunity is still there. And that's the last I'll say on the matter. On Access Biotics PS, those sales are increasing, 38% growth. We are not throwing the kitchen sink at marketing. We're not throwing a ton of money at social media, advertising in national presses or billboards in Leicester Square. That's not what we do. We're taking this slowly, steadily and cautiously, because that's what will ultimately show to the multinationals that this product is absolutely scalable. Those acne results that prove that we're not a one-trick pony are due imminently and expected to be, based on the interim results, very, very good indeed. Project Epiderm is now live. That's partially grant funded and hopefully will end up being significantly grant funded. And this could lead to other significant commercial partnerships. The first acquisition is complete, that of Dermatonics. We're very proud of that. We're very pleased with it. It is accretive from a cash perspective, as I think Manpreet's just spoken about. That Modi contract was pulled forward significantly by 7 or 8 months, maybe even a little longer than that. We've still got some final synergies to pull through. Unfortunately, the use of the CLN facility was deemed as not appropriate by many people out there. There's been a lot of talk on the boards. There's been a lot of talk amongst the retail and the institutional community about that. Unfortunately, financing is often, as we've said in the RNS this morning, a massive distraction, not only for management and those of us who operate this day to day, but also for investors. It attracts the wrong words, the wrong descriptions, death spiral. We are not using this for working capital. We raised enough working capital in December last year. This is used to buy accretive assets. We've taken what you've said on board in terms of market sentiment, in terms of the use of a convertible. Unfortunately, the position that we were in, that was one of the only instruments that was available to us to secure that acquisition. We've made the announcement that we will not use that any further. We've not angered the providers, as some people have said. In fact, quite the opposite. The providers are working with us. We are looking at alternatives, and we do have term sheets from alternative providers out there. We need to find the most appropriate financial vehicle and instrument to use for any further acquisitions. We do have further acquisitions in the pipeline, and it would be inappropriate for me to talk about them, who they are right now. And finally, in terms of executive remuneration, we listened to what you've had to say. We have taken a 20% reduction quite voluntarily. We understand what you've had to say, and we backdated that to the start of the year. That pretty much ends the formal part of the presentation here. So I think, if I may, I'll move on to the questions.
Perfect. Stuart, Manpreet, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab, which is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions that have been submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. As you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. And Stuart, Manpreet, if I could just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it is appropriate to do so. I'll pick up from you at the end.
Thank you. I'll just open by saying here, we can see a list of questions. They're often filtered out by our PR team when there's a duplication of the same question time after time after time, just to make it easier for us to read through. So if you feel that you've asked a question and I haven't answered it, you always have access to us through the investor relations side. If you send an email to that, we respond to as many as we possibly can. Sometimes it takes us a few days depending on workload, but we will always endeavour to respond. So the first question reads, the RNS says that clinical studies are well progressed and are set to conclude in early summer, which will be immediately followed by finalisation of the manufacturing process and commercialisation, which will run concurrently. This is written as though Croda is a done deal, as there's no mention of if successful. Your comments, please. So I think I've pretty much answered that. What I was saying there is that this is not binary. This goes ahead. It either goes at a higher price or it goes at the price that it initially intended. It is that discovery of additional activity that was witnessed on scale up that led to the extension. That's exactly what brought the clinical studies around. We had not intended on doing clinical studies. It was Sederma and Croda's request that they do so, and that was in the belief that the evidencing of that additional activity could lead to a higher price point in market. So there's not an if successful. This is much more about how much evidence we can get and how much would that influence the price. As I said, what we know of the progress thus far from the internal protocol is that this is progressing very well. And they're running to exactly the same protocol as the external third party. The next question is, despite the announcement that Feet Dermatonics has been launched by Umesh Modi, there appears to be no marketing presence on the internet. Can we expect a high-profile marketing campaign from the partner in the near future to rapidly grow sales? So, yeah, we discussed that at length with the Modi group, with Mr. Modi and his senior team. And, you know, as they pull the sales force through the training facility and they're released out into the market, selling the product directly, you will start to see an increase in the marketing activity therein. A lot of it will depend on the feedback that they're getting on initial approaches and initial sales, but we are expecting a forecast, and you can expect a more increased high-profile marketing campaign. They are very, very good at what they do. The Modi Group, we've seen excellent examples of their acne scar products, which has been marketed on television right across that region, and also in trade journals as well. So the answer to that question is yes, you can expect that, and it's a good question. Moving on, assuming you are in discussions for refinancing of the current facility, please confirm regarding the existing drawdown 1.6 million. Will this part be refinanced too, and therefore, most importantly, prevent further future forward sales by Macquarie? How are these refinancing discussions progressing? So it would be a little bit premature for me to talk about what's in the term sheets. That's not publicly available information at the moment. We are in discussions with a number of providers. One of the options is that we take the whole facility out. One of them is that we work closer with the providers to work on tolerance side letters that talk about converting at a rate and at a price that is more appropriate to the company's future. So we are very heavily involved in that at the moment. The next question, has Project Epiderm been launched with the incorporation of the skin bacteria into Dermatonics once Heal Balm in mind? That's an excellent question. Yes, of course, we talked about hard to heal wounds, and one of those, the bigger areas of hard to heal wounds, as well as venous leg ulcers, is diabetic foot ulcers. That is an area of expertise of the Dermatonics team, and in particular their clinical lead in-house. It is a conversation that we've had. It is part of the reason that we want to explore this deeply, and it is absolutely one of the things that's guiding us through this project. So the answer to that is yes. The next question, why are the CFO and the CEO not buying stock? That is an easy one to answer, but also a tricky one. And what I mean by that is that up until now, we've been in a closed period. And what I can tell you is our staff have been buying quite frantically this morning because we're out of that closed period. We are, generally speaking, very often seen as inside. For example, Manpreet and I have inside knowledge on what the next acquisition target is and how those financing discussions are progressing. So it would be totally inappropriate for us to be buying now. And every opportunity we've been given to buy, we have bought, as have the board. We are heavily incentivized by share options, which are all milestone driven. Those milestones are share price. My next share options don't kick in until the share price hits 80p. I think, Manpreet, your options hit in at 50p. So we are highly motivated to get the share price right back to where it was. And when given the opportunity, when we're deemed as not inside, we will absolutely acquire what we can. I hope that answers the question. Is the skin bacterium selected for Project Epiderm likely to be complementary to or seen as an alternative for the SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS lysate in the wound healing area? So it would be complementary to, and actually as an aside to, so it is a different project altogether. There is very strong evidence that the lysate that we have enhances the wound, the barrier effect around the wound. But we need to do more work on that lysate and the other areas that we're looking at in Epiderm. So it would be it's a difficult question to answer. The answer to it is we are working in that space, and it is an area of huge opportunity, and we are talking to the right people. Is the global distribution deal still on the table? Given that we have less than 600 customers and large costs in place to service them, can you explain why we passed on the deal again? You've shown that you can accept when a mistake has been made, so why not go back and accept the deal to reduce outgoings and promote the product and benefit from the economies of scale? That's a great question. Happy to answer it. The deals that we had on the table were forecasted distribution deals. They had some quite significant stocking orders in, and on top of that, they were forecasted sales from the distributors themselves. The margin surrender was eye-watering. We would have been earning single-digit margins. Right now, as Manpreet explains, that's sort of circa was 67%, it's now 64%. So we are significantly better off with the margins that we're earning now than we would have been with a distribution deal. Furthermore, we wouldn't have had no control over access to the customers, branding, greater understanding of how this product works, on why it works on some people quickly and why it works on other people slower. And that's something that we're very, very interested in learning. None of that would have been available if we'd gone through distributors. So that decision was not lightly made. There are distributors that do contact us. For example, the accelerator program that we've just signed up to with World Products, there is a cost to that, but it's nowhere near as eye-watering as the distribution deals that we were looking at with the Holland and Barretts of this world.
I think the other point, I was going to say, I think the other point to note is that the payment terms were truly horrific. You know, from a cash flow perspective, you were looking at 3 to 6 months before we would see cash, whereas now we see cash drop in day out.
Correct, thank you. So I think that answers that. Are there any terms to pay back the original CLN loan, or can it only be settled by conversion? No, it can be settled outright. There is a cost to that. And you know, one of the financing options would be to take the whole thing out, or it can be settled by conversion. And we discuss with the providers, you know, how appropriate that is. One thing that I need to make clear is, and I know that, you know, this is controversial, but we used that facility because it was the most appropriate at the time. You can't keep everybody happy all of the time. There is going to be a period of dilution, but in terms of cost of the loan, the coupon is extremely low. A lot of our institutions have acknowledged that this will wash through, and when it has washed through, we are in possession and ownership of an extremely profitable and accretive asset, as in Dermatonics, that will continue to grow. The Umesh Modi deal itself, as well as all of the other opportunities that lie in diabetic foot ulcers, etc., will more than justify the cost of this acquisition. And I think, you know, in a year or so's time, people will look and say, okay, that was painful at the time, but look what it led on to. You know, we really do stand on our own 2 feet now. We would like to add further acquisitions to that, but we appreciate that the sentiment around a convertible loan note is so loud that we can't ignore it. So, as I say, we've stepped back from that. Axis PS seems to have spectacular results for those with severe forms of psoriasis. Why is it that the target market is seen as mild to moderate sufferers? That just seems to be the bulk of our audience, our subscribers, are mild to moderate. We do have some severe sufferers, and they do see quite significant results. But some people that take this see, you know, very mild results. They see very little results as well. So it is something that we are exploring. It is right and proper that it's been brought up. It is something we're exploring in greater detail. How come the lady that we showed in the slides today sees such spectacular results after 8 days? Some people it takes 3 months. We know that body mass, it plays a large part in this. We know that diet plays a huge part in this. We know that hydration, stress, sleep, etc., all play a part in this. So can we get a perfect target audience? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're all very different, and it impacts people's gut microbiome and their immune system in different ways. What we do know is that if people persevere with this, it works, and it works for an awful lot of the people that take it. Have Croda intimated on how keen the customers are to take on the lysate? I'm not able to answer that question. That's not being RNS, so unfortunately I can't answer that question. As I said, all I can say is they are extremely confident internally. Expectations are very high, and I think that came across in Cecile's short video there. Appreciate that was heavily accented, but you know, as I say, her words are written verbatim in the RNS. Can you please comment on Flexitol, made and sold globally by a multinational, is clinically proven? How will Heel Balm compete without huge marketing spend? Sudhirma said, if positive, what if human data shows nothing? Are you saying that they still launch a product that shows nothing in human formulations? No, we're not saying. Okay, so let me answer the first one. The Dermatonics product outperforms Flexitol pretty much in every area. That's why we've done a deal with people like Umesh Modi to get this product more widely known. I think we can prove, and we'll shortly be putting things on our website about the Dermatonics product and how it compares. Greg mentioned in his short video there that we have more published papers than any other product in this place. Flexitol has an enormous marketing budget behind it. We don't. You already mentioned their huge marketing spend. The second part of your question, Sederma said, if positive, what if human data shows nothing? We've already answered that question. It goes with a higher price if it's got solid data behind it, or it goes at a standard price without that. Even at the standard price, which we all bought in on the back of, and that's what we did the deal on, this is still one hell of a project. Boots, etc., sell Dermatonics products amongst many others. What's going to make me buy Dermatonics in preference to others? It has more papers behind it. It is a better product all round. It's sold heavily in Boots, it's sold heavily in Superdrug, and its expansion continues. Who is now running the science programs? Update on CSO, please. Yeah, Professor Kath moved from her full position, her position as Chief Science Officer, which was part-time, 50% of her time. She's now returned back to academia. She's always been the head of the Translational Dermatology Lab at the University of Manchester. She returns to that, but remains as the scientific advisor of the company. We are running a program with Professor Sheena Cruikshank, Professor McBain. We still have the inflammation program running with the University of Manchester with Professor Kath. So I think it was all we had to say, and that was in the RNS with a very positive quote from Professor Kath. I think I'm being told that that's all we have time for. I've overrun the 1 hour slot. Thank you all for your time. If I didn't get to answer all of the questions, of which there are many, many, many that I haven't got to, if you'd like to email them into the investor relations email, I'd be happy to respond to them. Once again, thank you for your time. That ends the interim. I thank you for your loyalty, your patience in the company. We are very, very positive indeed on driving the share price upwards. We've faced a little bit of a backlash from various fronts on the convertible loan note. We're looking to work through that now, but I think that today's news on Sederma and on progress on all fronts will hopefully stabilize the market somewhat until we can work through that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Perfect. Stuart, Manpreet, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of SKINBIOTHERAPEUTICS PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you.